So, jetzt ist es 13:25 Uhr und wir starten ja immer genau pünktlich. Kurzes Announcement, der nächste Vortrag ist auf Englisch. Wenn jemand eine Übersetzung braucht, da vorne gibt es Ohren, die kann man sich da holen und die Übersetzer sind auch da und waren hier schon den ganzen Tag fleißig. Jetzt müssen sie einmal in die Richtung Englisch-Deutsch übersetzen. Okay, and I switch to English to announce the next speaker. We are very happy that you are here, Will. So Will Hannan is a Chief Commercial Officer of the Berlin-based startup Mobius Labs, a company that is leveraging artificial intelligence for imaging applications, particularly for picture or object recognition. And Will has a very busy schedule in these days because last week the company raised some 5.4 million euro new venture capital, so congratulations. So next time you will have to pay more for your sponsoring package. So, and I think I don't talk any longer because the stage is yours, Will.
Okay, my hand's full. So first of all, I can try and give the presentation in German, but I will only understand every second or third word. So if you can bear with me in English, that would be much appreciated. My name is Will Hannan. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Mobius Labs. We're a Berlin-based computer vision startup. Computer vision is the application of machine learning and artificial intelligence to visual analysis of different types of content. And I want to start today's presentation with that button, with a very old image that was painted on a wall in Indonesia on an island called Sulawesi. It was discovered in 2017, and this is circa 45,000 years old. This is an image of a very old boar, essentially, some photorealism there. And the reason I bring this up is because it really sets the stage for our conversation here about how intrinsic visual communication is to us as human beings, right? For as long as there have been humans with access to something to draw on a wall or scratch in the sand, we communicate visually, and I'll touch on that more in our presentation. That history is not changing, it's not slowing down. In fact, it's exponentially growing. 60% of the world's data is now visual, and we are visually inundated everywhere we go. Even in this room, the amount of digital media around us in our pockets, on the way here, on the bus, on the train, the amount of visual stimuli is overwhelming, and making sense of that, connecting with that in a meaningful way, and connecting our audiences, our users, our buyers with that content is the objective a lot of the organizations that we're working with struggle to keep up with. As times change, technologies change, and the data changes, Mobius Labs sits in this very interesting position in between our customers, our clients, our partners, and that content, helping make sense of all of that visual data that's present in the world and what that means for their businesses. I'm going to bring that back to photography. This is a photography conference after all. This is Charles Baudelaire, and I put a quote up by him. He's a French 19th century decadent poet, very progressive for his time. And I put him up to give you a contrast of sometimes in the creative industries, and maybe in the photographic industries, technology, creativity, they don't always play so nicely together. There's a lot of pushback sometimes. We look at this quote. Baudelaire says, in 1863, "If photography is permitted to supplement some of art's functions, they will forthwith be usurped and corrupted by it, thanks to photography's natural alliance with the mob. It must therefore revert to its proper duty, which is to serve as the handmaiden of science and the arts." So Baudelaire, author of Fleur de Mal, very kind of obscene poet in a lot of ways, regarded by his peers, against photography. Doesn't see it as a viable art form at the time. But if we fast forward, we know that's no longer the case. Photography is a beautiful way for us to communicate with one another. It's the center of a lot of our businesses. And this kind of technological pushback, this dissonance between machines, tools, communication, and artistic purity is not specific to that industry either. If you look in the 1940s in the United States, you have folk singers with acoustic guitars. They're sort of radical individuals singing about freedom or individual ideals. But come the 1950s, people plugged those guitars into amplifiers, and it's devil music, right? You know, it's antisocial to be playing this type of music. Rock and roll is not an acceptable form of communication. Fast forward 20 years, David Bowie is a household name. You know, he's my mother's favorite musician. You know, the electric guitar is not a taboo anymore. This is something that's everywhere. It's accepted by everyone. And where we live in Berlin, we know this to be especially true. Electronic music is seen as an unavoidable form of musical expression and artistic communication. And I think putting that in our minds before we start talking about imaging and artificial intelligence, the role of technology as it interfaces with what we consider to be very human parts of the artistic process, is important. So let's bring it back to artificial intelligence, because for machines to understand the nuances of visual content, for them to make meaningful impacts on our organizations, to understand the creative distribution of different pieces of images and videos in a meaningful way, they need to be seriously smart. 50% of our brains, all of our brains, are dedicated to the visual cortex. That's a lot of our cognitive space is dedicated to processing visual content. For the machines to be able to replicate this, they need to be seriously smart. Contrast that with 8% of the brain being dedicated to touch, the sensation of physical touch and interaction, or 3% being dedicated to hearing. Again, we're reinforcing that idea that we are deeply visual communicators. Today, artificial intelligence tools and computer vision and these types of technologies are replicating the way that the visual cortex, this part of the brain, works by creating artificial neural networks. In this case, the visual cortex is on the right-hand side, being replicated on the left-hand side by what's called a convolutional neural network. And you can see that we're already creating very similar processes to the way that our brain fires neurons to understand this visual information. So we end up asking ourselves, in addition to seeing, and as someone who works at an artificial intelligence company, a computer vision company, I can tell you that machines can see very well. They can understand content very well. They can look at this room and tell who's in it. They could say how many desks are here. They could tell you what colors are here. But understanding is sort of the next frontier. You know, being able to perceive that content in a meaningful way, to associate an interpretation, a perception, the same way that we would when we interact with content we might want to engage with or purchase from a certain platform. And I'm going to show you a demonstration here from our company of a machine that's doing quite a lot of that already, which is through aesthetic analysis. So we can start the video here. So we'll start with the seeing side of things. I can use my laser pointer on both sides. So can we start the video, please? What we see here, and it looks a little grainy, blown up, so I'll do the translating, but that's an image of Salvador Dali taken in the 1940s by Irving Penn. It's a portrait series where they kind of put them in the corner there. And you can see all the tags here that our machine learning is able to automatically identify. Ooh. Just one second. This is not Salvador Dali. Nor is, but that is. So we'll go over here. Okay. This is what's called the demonstration effect.
We had it before this one.
Yeah, no problem.
You are not the only one.
There we go. Okay, it's playing now. So we just leave it. Perfect. And looking very good. Thank you. So Salvador Dali, you can see the machine learning, the computer vision identifies immediately that he is male, gives an age assessment, can see his face. And the seeing portion that I'm talking about, this computer vision, we're identifying that it's a portrait, that it's full length, that there's monochrome photography here. Can identify even formal wear, footwear, that he's looking at the camera, that he's sitting, that it's probably a photo shoot, that it's indoors. And all of this can be instantly applied to an image to make it searchable, to make it easier to understand. Another still life from Penn, we see a bottle, a wine bottle, probably some alcohol, still life photography. Again, monochrome, we see the silhouette, we see that it's indoors. And then we get this nice photo of a rooster. We see it's a rooster. We can identify poultry, cockerel, animal body part. We can see a beak. Get a close-up there that it's a profile view. The color red is prominent. Now, if you've got a lot of images, being able to instantly analyze all of this content and see what's in it is really important. But what's really interesting is this aesthetic score. Now, this is a base aesthetic model that we have that just assesses overall image quality, relevance to Mobius brand's understanding of that. But we can train individual aesthetic models based on a user's preference or a brand's preference simply by showing it examples of what we believe to be relevant to our brand, relevant to our buyers, relevant to our style, and examples of what's not relevant. What aren't we looking for? What's not our aesthetic? What's not performing well in the market? And these are not bad images. They're different images. It's assessing, by looking at the difference, what is our style, what is our preference, what is our taste, and what is not. And by training that, the model learns the difference. It understands the difference between the nuances in creativity. And it's very difficult to explain with words what that style was. It was sort of neon, nightlife, silhouettes. But the machine can understand visually. The best way to communicate visual differences is visual. And you see the results here. And you can see at the top, the machine's done a very good job of understanding what that aesthetic was. This is a confidence score on the bottom right-hand side. That's how confident that the machine is that this is relevant to the aesthetic that I've just taught it, to the style that it's just learned. And as we go down, we can see that that aesthetic number starts to drop. The confidence score is dropping. We get down towards the bottom, and as it's relatively low, nice images, but a different style. They've been automatically segmented out from the model that we've taught it. And when we talk about computer vision and computer understanding, computer perception, how long does it take for machine learning and data scientists to be able to replicate the frontal lobe, which is the part of the brain that assigns meaning and interpretation to the visual stimuli that it encounters? If you ask me, it's an inevitability that we get there. And then the next question becomes, can we go full screen on that again? The next question becomes, what does that mean for the imaging industry? What does that mean for organizations that work with huge amounts of content, different groups of people that want to interact with that content, different styles, different needs, different trends, different changes, different things that are always developing in time? And we come to some very basic challenges. One is that not all images are created equal, especially when we start assigning different styles and tastes and preferences and brands and audiences. If I was looking for an image for a Christmas card, I would prefer the one on the left. And I could train an aesthetic model to separate that out from a group of content that I was going and looking for an image for my Christmas card. A lot of organizations spend a great deal of time solving this problem of separating content that is inherently not really created equally. Some converts better, some is more relevant to a different audience, some is more important. And this was an example of a flow that we see a lot of times with our partners and clients. You see on the left-hand side here, you've got your photographers and contributors. They submit their content, maybe partners, channels, syndicates, through review teams. And these teams review a great deal of content before they segment them out to be in different, let's say, they trisect them into great images, okay images, poor images, and they end up in different places on their website or on their platform as a result of how they've been manually categorized. That makes sense. Your best images, your great images, you want to curate those. The worst content that's not going to perform, you want to segment that out. But that is a huge amount of operational load. That's a big operational expenditure. With artificial intelligence, using an aesthetic model like we just showed you, by training what's relevant or training multiple models of what's relevant to different audiences, we can automate that process so that your teams are able to spend more time with these great images, spending more time on what's important and less time weeding through what can be easily identified as irrelevant. Another challenge we come across when we're working with large amounts of visual content, or we've got a platform, maybe an image licensing website, everybody in this room is used to searching for content with really, really good service. Everybody has used Google, even Yahoo, Bing, even the secondary competitors. We come to every website with that expectation that I should be able to find what I want really quickly on the first page. And if I don't, there's a good chance I'm going to churn from that website. I'm going to go to another website where the search experience is better and find my content somewhere else. The amount of conversions on your second, third, fourth pages of search results are significantly lower than they are on the first, and that's for a reason. Our attention spans have been trained to get what we're looking for right away. Using the image tagging that we showed earlier in the presentation, the cockerel and showing the red and showing that was a beak and a rooster, we can automatically assign these tags that make them searchable to prioritize the content and make them engage with very easily on the first page. So if you go onto the website and you type in you're looking for somebody using a computer in an office with one person and a hand, you can find this image, or any number of thousands and thousands of keywords, both standardized and easily custom trained to connect your audiences with what they're looking for. There are a number of organizations that we work with around the world. I'll give a couple examples here that are leveraging these technologies. The Deutsche Presseagentur here in Germany, they use our tagging and facial recognition solutions to automatically categorize their archive. So everything that's submitted or everything they have is analyzed with these tags, so we know who's in it, we know what's in it, we know where it is, we know what kind of content is there. So when their users interact with their website at the Picture Alliance, here, they can type in these terms and they can find those things instantly. There's no searching through pages and pages of content. They have a first-class search experience similar to what their users expect from the rest of the world. Similarly, in Japan, we work with Amana Images, the largest stock photography website in the Japanese region. They use our aesthetic model to analyze their contributions, their archives, their content. And they've trained a model that's specific to the Japanese aesthetic. Anyone who's been to Tokyo or who's familiar with the content there knows that it's totally different than Western Europe, you know, or North America. It's a different style. So the machine needs to be able to understand those nuances, and we empowered them to train something that worked for their clients in a very specific way, and that can be done for each and every business in this room, so that they're not spending their time on the content that's not relevant to their clients. They're bringing and segmenting the most interesting images to the forefront of their organization. So now you have a sense of some of the capabilities of computer vision, just a few, what it's doing for some businesses today, but where it gets even more fun is talking about what it's going to be like tomorrow. Now, anyone who gets up here and tells you they know what artificial intelligence is going to do for anything with any kind of degree of absolute certainty in the future is probably not telling you the truth. But we have some ideas about it. And if we take it back a level, there's some really central opportunities for us to change here. The way that we interact with visual content it's a little bit weird. You know, it's a little bit backwards to be explaining visuals with words. Be searching for images and photographs and paintings with words. It's like annotating music, right? It takes a long time to learn how to read the musical manuscript, if anybody in the room is a musician, and it's a very complicated way of communicating that music. It's like explaining a painting in prose or with a poem, or trying to explain a sculpture with a song. This is inherently a disconnect between what we're looking for and how we describe it. But what if in the future we didn't do that? What if we didn't need to search for content? We could find this content without searching for it, just by interacting with it. Imagine this is the front page of a website where I am going in to find some content that's relevant to the Mobius Labs branding. I want something for my new pitch deck or a flyer that we're putting together. And I use that website quite a lot. So it has examples of my historic interactions, my historic purchases. It's been able to analyze the aesthetics of the different content here. The style, the mood, the people, the kind of tone, so that when I get to that website, rather than typing in, I would like a silhouette with a neon color in the background of a person in their mid-20s and so on and so forth, it looks at what I did previously and it makes me an automatic recommendation, or a set of recommendations, and the search process becomes an interaction process. And we move forward with the technology to kind of turn the industry on its head, to be able to recommend to users what they're looking for, rather than have them spend time doing work for us, trying to find the content that we want them to engage with. Because that's sort of the holy grail of this whole process, you know, understanding your users, understanding why they're buying, interacting with, why they like certain things, what their visual preferences are, be that an individual a group of individuals, a brand, a company, a corporation. To make your platform the most meaningful platform for them, you need to bring them the right content. And it's different for every single persona, every single person that interacts with your platform. And by combining aesthetic analysis and purchasing behavior, we can create these deeply personal experiences through computer vision and AI that connect our audiences with that information without them having to do the work, without them having this risk of dropping off the process or going somewhere else where it's easier to find what they're looking for. So what the future of AI is going to look like and how that changes the imaging industry is very difficult to say, but we do know that it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to be a problem of scale. There's going to be more and more content. We're moving far away from a handful of handmade images on cave walls to a world where there are trillions of pieces of content, 60% of which are created digitally. And for any of us to keep up with any of it in our personal or professional lives, these tools will become mechanisms to empower us, to allow us to make sense of that content and get it to the places where it needs to go. I think it's also important to remember that no matter where it goes, the human element is going to have a big portion of that. There's always going to be an opportunity for oversight, for building in stop measures, for controlling how the AI actually functions in the organization, not stripping all of the creativity out of a business and having a machine take it over. Whenever there's high societal or business impact, when something's sensitive, and in visual content it's quite important around ideas and topics of representation, bias, inclusivity, you have the opportunity for human oversight. The technology becomes a tool, becomes a platform that allows you to do more things, free up the humans to do more impactful things inside of the organizations. And I'll bring it back to this music metaphor one more time. I don't think it's the role of technologists to tell people who work in the imaging industry or creatives in general what artificial intelligence is going to do for the business. We have some examples, we have some ideas, we've got some references from existing clients. But just like the first time somebody put a pickup in an acoustic guitar sometime in the 19th century, I guess, they didn't know that David Bowie was going to write Heroes, right, and play it outside of the Berlin Wall. They're creating a tool for expression to accomplish a goal, and that's what we're doing at Mobius Labs. And I give you this great metaphor in my mind. In 1987, Bowie plays this famous concert at the Reichstag in Berlin, right, and it's with the Eurythmics and Genesis and Bowie are playing at the Reichstag. But they're playing so close to where the Berlin Wall was standing at the time that the people in East Berlin could go on the other side of the wall and they could hear Bowie playing. Because of that technology, he's loud enough. You know, if he was up there with an acoustic guitar like Woody Guthrie, it's not going to work. But they're loud enough as a group to reach the other side of the wall and connect the city through that technology, through that expression. And in a lot of ways, that's what we're looking to do at Mobius Labs, is to provide this platform, provide this technology, this set of tools to empower and enable organizations that take advantage of it to do more meaningful and powerful things with their audiences and make more sense of the visual content that we encounter on a daily basis. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and you are pretty good in time. Are there any questions from the audience? Ich muss etwas kritisch gucken, weil ich hier immer etwas geblendet werde von dem Licht. Any questions? No questions, but unfortunately I do have a question. What you explained about what AI can do is all related to existing visual content. Mm. Is it feasible that it will be part of camera manufacturing as well, or camera design, that we have a German joke that we say a camera needs a Motivklinge, so a kind of alarm that tells you when it is the right moment to take a picture. Is that something you could imagine to implement in a camera or even in a smartphone?
Yeah, absolutely. So the models for this artificial intelligence and computer vision are very small, a couple of megabytes, and they can be installed on any type of hardware, in the cloud, on a device. I have it installed on my cell phone. And we've developed applications for what's called computational photography, which allows the camera to give shot suggestions, to tell you, actually, what did you say, a motif?
Motivklinge.
Motivklinge, essentially like this, telling you when the photograph is aesthetically improved. Mm-hmm. or to automatically sort through a gallery. So applying these same technologies to hardware opens up a whole other possibility of making smart devices, absolutely.
Okay, so then good luck with your negotiations with the camera industry or with the smartphone makers.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.